Hello and welcome to another TP's Diary video. In this video we're going to have a new feature which is quite exciting. We're lucky enough to have two fantastic cars here. So we've got an Audi R8 and a 1965 Series 1 E-Type to record. Anyway, part of the joy of being part of the Jaguar's Drivers Club and having cars like this, so that people meet along the way and all the different stories. So I thought I'd try and feature some of those. I've been lucky enough to meet some new friends along the way, and we've got a couple of them here today, and then hopefully I can persuade them to tell me about their cars. My first gullible friend who's come to help me. So everyone, this is Dick. He's the proud owner of this beautiful E-Type. How long have you had it for, Dick?
Basically, I had the car for about, let's see, back in 2000, I think. I got the car off a very good friend of mine, who started the renovation, but basically ran out of steam like a lot of renovation projects.
Yes.
And then it just rolled over and died, and he pushed it up to the back of his garage. Yeah. There it stayed for quite a few years. And then I was then very fortunate to come into a bit of money from my mother and father.
Right.
And I was with my friend Nick, who's the original owner of this car, and I sort of said to him, "Well, what are you going to do with the E-Type?" I said, I've got too many other things. I said, well, look, I got a bit of money coming from mum and dad.
Yeah.
I said, I'll buy it off. He said, would you? So I said, well, God. He said, that'd be fantastic. He said, you were there when I bought it. So I do have a lot of connections to this car.
Yes, yeah.
That goes back to when he bought it and so on. And I did help him take it apart, and we forgot how it went back together and all the rest of it. But
how old were you when you did that?
I must have been in my late 30s. I was trying to work it out the other day prior to this meet.
So not that long ago then?
Not really. But the other part of this story, without making it too long, I suddenly, in a moment of madness, we shook on a deal to buy the car.
Yeah.
And I think it was after too many pints of beer, really, because I was driving back, and I suddenly thought, okay, I bought a car. I've always wanted to renovate a car, but I haven't really got the right facility. Whilst my house has got a garage, it's just a single garage within the house. Yeah. And I then thought, do you know, I haven't done cars for when I was a teenager going to college, and I haven't got any tools. And I suddenly had this massive wake-up call, and the next day I phoned up Nick. I said, can you look after the car for a bit longer? So he said, why? I said, well, I think I've got to modify the house to take.
Oh, no.
So this is project 2. The project 1 was modifying the house from a single to a double garage, which was, in some ways, it benefited the house.
Yeah, yeah.
So once I got it back, the car sat in the garage for quite a few years, with all boxes of bits. It was just, and it was then having then started to research, what have I got myself into? I then realised there was 2 things that came to mind. One, first of all, the bodywork wasn't in really very good condition.
Yeah.
I was very lucky to be put in touch with a company that's based in Portsmouth, a company called ERB. They do lots of repairs for Twyford Moors and people like that.
Okay, yes.
So I went to see them, and they said, well, I've got this project. And eventually, long story short, yes, they took it away. I stripped it right back to the shell. There we found all the problems.
Right.
And then at that point, they were looking after the bodywork, which I just knew it's something I just couldn't do that. Yeah. I don't have the facility, and more importantly, the amount of hours.
It's quite a skill to do a bodywork.
And in my then researching about, you're looking for people to help, steer me in the right direction. And eventually I was extremely lucky to end up with the Jaguar Drivers Club.
Yeah.
And there I met a wonderful man called John Burton. Everybody knows John Burton, but I've got to mention John because without his push, without his don't do this, do that, I think I would have stumbled massively.
Right. Right.
So his encouragement behind the scenes
So is he like a sort of a Jag encyclopedia then?
Oh, he's a guru as far as he's Yoda as far as I'm concerned when it comes to Jaguars.
Yeah.
And he's become, I have to say, I'm sure, but he's become since then. He's become a great friend. Him and his lovely wife Sue.
Right.
So I then began to realise that the car was a lot more complicated than, say, an Austin Mini, which is what I was familiar with. At the time, I decided the engine hadn't been working for nearly probably 40 years. Nick reckoned about 43 years. So that I carted off the engine to a guy called Ken Jenkins. He's also in the folklore, more involved with the Jaguar Enthusiast Club.
Yeah.
He rebuilt the engine. I had all the carburetors rebuilt by Berlin's down in Salisbury because I began to realise. So slowly and surely I got put in touch with where to take the gearbox to be rebuilt, the rear axle and so on. So slowly and surely, while the car was being bodied and everything else, I then
all the other
was
bits
busy
sorted.
doing the cleaning up and rebushing and everything else.
Was it always this colour?
So in that process, it was originally white.
Oh, right.
And then it was one of the guys in the club, well, you need to send off all the information, all the gearbox numbers and everything. So when you've got it all apart, you can get to all the numbers.
Yes.
It's impossible to get a gearbox number without taking it all apart.
Yeah.
So I sent off all the numbers to Jaguar Daimler Heritage. And much to my delight, the certificate came back. Everything was factory spec.
Right.
Everything, all the numbers matched, the infamous matching numbers.
Yeah.
But there, in the middle, opalescent golden sands from the factory. And I thought, that explains why there's bits of yellow inside. I couldn't work out where these bits of yellow came from within the bulkhead.
Right.
So sure enough, I went to see Paul down at ERB.
Yeah.
And I said, got a bit of a shock, because he and I were going to do it white, as we thought it was.
Oh, okay.
And I said, opalescent, oh, Christ. Because it's a really difficult.
Well, you hadn't started painting it by then.
No, because it was all in, undercoat epoxy and bits and pieces like that. So what people forget about renovation is the amount of time you need to do the interior.
Yeah.
And so I bought a kit from Aldridge Trimmers. Yeah. Which was a fact, because it was absolutely, the car, I should add, the car had done 100,000 miles.
Right.
It was 129 on the odometer.
Right.
So the car had been pushed through its life. And so the interior, I decided, look, I just decided, and I did the interior myself.
Right.
Ably assisted by Paul down in Portchester Trimmers, who did the seats for me. And I did the rest of it. But when you lay out all the pieces, you can fill a garage floor.
Oh, yeah.
It's just an incredible. And then you forget about how much time the trimmers and I.
Well, that's the problem when you take a car apart, is how much space you need to store all the parts.
And that's why I realised, that's why I had to do the extension and so, because I just knew you need to walk around it, but also all the bits that are stacked up in boxes and brackets, you think, where does this bracket come? It must go on the car somewhere. But eventually, it took me best part of 7 years. I was still at work, working at weekends on this. Now and again, I've been doing stuff over Christmas and so on. And then eventually, I just decided, well, that's it, job done. And then finally, I took it to a garage to do a sort of spanner check on it, because and then at that time, yes, the car was, I'd driven the car up and down the runway, but not onto the road because it wasn't insured. And I thought if I had crashed it, people would say, at your age, Dick, you should have known better. But I then sent it up to a garage and they did a spanner check on it, and they sort of phoned me up and they then said, it's ready for you to come and pick up. Yeah. And of course, I went up there in a mini cab, got there, there's the keys, paying. I've never driven this car. that was the sort of something I realised. Yeah. So I was driving back this complete, and it was then that I realised, being at 6 foot, and you're what, 6'3", 6'4",
6'4".
I realised that I'm sort of, my knees, I'm thinking, I don't fit this car. And then I found out they're built around a 5'10" person. So I then mucked about with the seat runners, and I'm just about make it reasonable to drive on, say 200 miles. I can do in it without having to, it's the old knee stuff.
Well, I have to say, every Jag that I get into, I have to modify the seat.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, it's interesting. Like when you restore a car, I mean, I've had it. You have all the time in the world, nowhere to do it, and no money.
Yeah.
And then you have sort of, time, money but no time.
Yeah.
Then you have money and time but nowhere to do it. And eventually, you get to a point when you can actually get on and finish it. I mean,
on the two factors there, time is money and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
The one thing I always realised, I knew it was going to cost a lot more than I put a budget on it, and I'm thinking that probably won't be enough anyway.
Yeah.
And even when it was all done, the other part of it is you then find little bits that are not quite right.
Yeah.
So it's tinkering, and it becomes a hobby.
Yeah.
If I had more space and I had more time and I had more money, I'd quite happily find another car and do it. But I'm now 75, and I'm just thinking, well, I'm just going to enjoy it because, as we say in the club, basically drive it while you can, because there's two things can happen. One, you won't be physically able to get in and out of this car.
Right.
Or our lovely government might decide that they're no longer wanted on the road, and they'll probably find a way to get them off the road, which I think they tried, but that failed miserably last year.
I can't see how they're going to be able to
No, I know, but they were, we're fortunate because this is a classic, so it's non-taxed and non-MOT and all the rest of it. So, and I have to say, driving it is, you begin to understand the absolute wonderful joys of the XK engine, all 690,000 units. I think they're second largest engine manufactured. A fantastic tolerant engine, so much torque. We were tootling along there just 30 miles an hour, and then I just overtook you, and he just...
I know.
And the other bit, I think, that most people forget about this particular car, and that is the rear axle.
Yeah.
And the rear axle, the infamous IRS, which is what came from all the racing, that in itself is, I think, an engineering work of art. I mean, two engineering bits on, wrapped up in a lovely package. But I have to say, it's...
I think that was the thing that I couldn't get over. I mean, obviously, you know that I've just sold the XK 150, and you get, the way these cars drive. And how comfortable they are to drive.
The other thing I would say...
I mean, that one is, it's like driving a new car.
Yeah. But I think the other part I would say is that when you jump from a modern car back into this, you have to think about driving more than a modern car. You've got your automatics, and it does this, you've got flips. The one thing I miss is a flip wipe. Most of all, I miss a flip wipe when when that rain is just coming down. And I'm going to switch this on and off. So a flip wipe is, that's the one thing I wondered if there was a way of converting it, but the other part of it is trying to keep it. It's not completely standard. I mucked about with the exhaust system. It's got LED lights all around. I went down the route like you of trying to make it more capable within modern traffic.
I think that's important. I mean, people... They, as you say, they don't understand classic cars. So when you're driving down, any road with modern traffic, they jump on the brakes. Yeah. You need to be able to stop as quickly as them. At night, they, I mean, the XJC, that was like driving with somebody running in front of you with a candle. Well, it was shocking. And now you can see.
On the E-Type, I think I'm about 2 inches lower than the XJC.
Yeah.
So when you're driving along at night with the current LED lights, not only you're being blinded from the front, but you're being blinded from the back.
Yeah.
To that point, I've actually invested in one of those pairs of yellow glasses to cut down the glare.
Yeah.
And I say that takes a... I've had my cataracts done. That makes it worse.
Right.
And so as a consequence, when I go out at night, if I'm coming back from a cub meet, I put the glasses on. It makes driving
a big difference.
So much more, but more important, much safer as well. Because I got absolutely blinded at one point, and I just, where's the road? You had that moment of
panic.
Yeah. And but other than that, it's a lovely.
Well, it's a beautiful car, Dick, and
thank you very much.
And I really appreciate your time today, and and being the first person on
Well,
my channel.
I mean, that's quite nice
You know,
for you to say it. It's a pleasure for you to invite me into your
yeah,
new club. When I started, I never in a million years thought about the people that I would meet.
yes,
You know, Ken who did the engine, Ken who did the gearbox, Eric who did the rear diff and so on. I went out to meet these people and they're all old engineers and so on, and they're hanging in there. And of course, the other part of it is that when you then start to get involved with the Jaguar Drivers Club, I also a member of another club close to us, which is the Alresford Motor Club, which is, they have licorice also, but meeting all those people there with all these old cars, you think, there's only 2 of these in the world.
I know,
you know?
I know.
So that's the other aspect of it, is the meeting of the people and the widening of and the knowledge and of the horizons. And as you know, I've been up to various exhibitions with another good friend of mine in the Jaguar clubs, which is Richard Naylor. He's got one of these all singing, all dancing electric things, and we take the piss out of it, something wrong, because it's, you know, we're ICE, you know, and. He's massively enthusiastic about all the old cars. He writes into the Jaguar Drivers Club magazine. But when you're sitting there and we're going up to, say, Gaydon or somewhere like that, you know, up to the sort of Al Mecca.
Going up north.
Yeah, going up north, Al Mecca. The other part is that very often John comes with us and you sit with them two.
Yeah.
And you get conversations that I'd never have known about that.
Yeah.
Does that really? God, and they're the other bits.
I know.
You know, in conversation that you know. So it's been. I
have the same thing with my father. I mean,
yes,
you know,
the old car.
Yeah, he's had several XJ6s and Mark IIs, and my uncle, his brother, had a Coombs race car. Back in the day, you know, so and I suppose that's why I gravitated towards Jaguar, because
I mean the history behind that
is
just extraordinary. You know, the Jaguar C-Type, the first car in the world to have disc brakes.
I know.
Yeah, Jaguar. I know. We did it. We've done it. You know, so they're the things that, and again, it's just. The other part, we went down to Le Mans Classic last year with the Jaguars, with 3 Jaguars and John's Mark 7 and so on, big black beast, and everywhere.
I know. Anyway,
lovely.
Thanks so
Tom.
much.
Welcome.
Right, really appreciate it.
No, thank you. All the best.
Well, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Dick for taking the time to come and bring his E-Type and join us today and show us around his car. I hope you did like these videos. If you do, please hit that like button and do subscribe. And there's going to be more videos coming very soon.